At this time, I want to invite you to join in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Welcome to the Sumter School District June 14th, 2021 Board of Trustees meeting. All persons wishing to attend the virtual meeting may do so via YouTube, Sumter School District Board Meeting, and Sumter School District's Facebook page. Due to COVID-19 and in accordance with recent public health orders, no members from the public will be able to attend the meeting in person. This meeting is held in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The news media has been notified, and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. The mission. The mission of Sumter School District is to equip students to be responsible, successful, and productive citizens in a global society. The vision. Sumter School District develops and cultivates competitive students who embrace diversity, acts responsibly, and contribute positively to society. Our board members are Barbara R. Jackson, yours truly, chairwoman; J. Frank Baker, vice chair; Darryl McGaney, clerk, and he hasn't arrived as of yet; Brian Alston, Area 1; Cheryl Ray, Area 2, that's joining us virtually; Matthew McLeod, Area 3, also joining us virtually; John B. Hilton, Area 4; Gloria Lee, Area 6; Sean Reagan, Seat 9; Robin Mills, Deputy Director of Installation Support at Shaw Air Force Base representative; Penelope Martin Knox, our superintendent; Amy Hanson, our administrative manager; Connie Jackson, our attorney with Halligan, Mahoney, and Williams, will be joining us shortly; and Mr. McGaney just walked in, so he is present for this meeting as well. This meeting is now called to order. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this meeting. We hope we have reached the end of the 2021 academic year. However, we're going strong with our summer enrichment programs. Therefore, I am pleased to share that even though we will be celebrating the first day of summer next week, June 20th, learning never stops in Sumter School District. Public budget hearing. 2.1 is the FY 2022 proposed budget. At this time, I will open the floor for public budget hearing. As announced in the newspaper and on our agenda for this evening, comments were to be submitted by noon today. Dr. Martin Knox, Do we have any submitted comments to be read?
Good evening, Chairwoman Jackson. At this time, we do not have any public comment or feedback regarding the budget at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. With no further comment, the public hearing is now closed at 6:06 p.m. We're now down to 3-point area of the agenda. Upon consensus and with no objection, the agenda will stand approved as written. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. 4-point is public participation. 4.1, I will share the guidelines for public participation. The Board of Trustees is pleased to offer time on the agenda for public participation. The procedure for submission of comments has been shared via the district's website. As a reminder, submission are due by Wednesday prior to each regular monthly meeting. At this time, we will open the floor not to exceed 15 minutes for the reading of previously submitted comments. Dr. Martin Knox, do we have any public participation comments? If so, please share them.
Good evening, Dr. Jackson. As of today at noon, we do not have any public participation comment.
Thank you, Dr. Martin Knox. We'll move on down to board communication. 5-point. Trustees, I invite you to share any announcements you may have at this time.
Madam Chairwoman?
Yes, Mr. Alston.
I would like to make 2 announcements this afternoon. In line with our vision that Sumter School District develops and cultivates competitive students who embrace diversity, act responsibly, and contribute positively to society, I would like to say personally, Happy Pride Month to our LGBTQ students, staff, and community. This is extremely important considering a national school climate survey conducted by GLCEN states that schools are unsafe and unwelcoming for the majority of LGBT students. 65% of students have heard homophobic remarks, 30% have missed at least one day of school because they felt unsafe or uncomfortable, and 85% were verbally harassed in the past year. I think this is extremely important for us to recognize our community and thank them for their contributions to Sumter School District and the community at large. Lastly, I would like to say happy 246th birthday to the U.S. Army, especially to our 3rd Army community.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Alston. Any other announcements? Okay, hearing none, we will proceed to 5.2, committee reports. We will now move on to the committee report. And for the Citizen Advisory Committee, I will ask Mrs. Hanson to make contact with our members of the Citizen Advisory Committee to schedule a meeting sometime in the middle of July. This will allow discussion prior to school resuming for 2021-2022 school year. Do we have the facilities? Do you have a report this evening?
Madam Chair, we don't have a report, but we are gearing up for our next meeting, so we're gonna contact Ms. Hanson, and as a committee, we're probably gonna meet the latter part of July. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
Finance, Mrs. Ray, do you have a report for this evening?
The Finance Committee has nothing to report at this time. We will be scheduling our meeting in July.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ray. Our Policy Committee, Mr. Alston.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, the recommendation for policy EBCB, safety plans and drills, further action has been postponed due to the memo received by the State Department of Education on May 25th, providing an extension for the submission of school district fire and safety policies. Based on the authority granted to the state superintendent pursuant to Act 135, the submission date of July 1st, 2021 for school districts to submit fire safety policies has been extended until July 1st of 2022. However, districts will be required to complete the Model Safety Schools checklist by September 1st, 2021. Additional guidance on the checklist is forthcoming and will be reviewed and monitored for submission by the superintendent. Also, the policy committee is tentatively looking at meeting on July 20th. And that concludes my committee report.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Alston. The Transportation Ad Hoc Committee.
Madam Chair, no report at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Baker.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I ask a question
Yes.
regarding committees? I was wondering if there was going to be any official response to the public regarding the issues that were raised by the item questioning whether the board had followed proper protocol in the removal of community members from the standing committees.
I think that,
The statement is
we will
expected.
talk about that in executive session, and that will be shared,
Thank you.
with the public as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Hilton.
Yes, ma'am.
We're now moving down to any other questions? Okay, if not, we're now moving down to 5.3, the legislative update. Dr. Hilton, are you prepared to provide a legislative update?
Yes, ma'am. As we all know, the legislative session has ended, but there's much work left to be done. The budget is not yet finalized and will be discussed by a conference committee that includes 3 members from the House and 3 members from the Senate, who will have to work out the differences between the House version and the Senate version of the budget. The conference committee is expected to meet this week to finalize a proposed plan to present to the full House and Senate, which is set to reconvene at noon on June the 21st. House members appointed to the conference committees are Representatives Merle Smith, Bruce Bannister, and Jackie Hayes. Senate members on the conference committee are Senator Hugh Leatherman, Nikki Setzler, and Harvey Peelan. The budget approved by the House includes a $1,000 pay raise on top of the annual step increase for teachers and a 5% pay raise for school bus drivers. A new budget proviso prohibiting school districts from requiring their students or staff to wear a face mask at any of their facilities was adopted by the House this past week and is included in the House budget plan. There are significant differences between the Senate and the House versions of the budget, and these differences will have to be worked out by the conference committee. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hilton, for your report. We're now down to 6 point, the superintendent's report. The next items on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Martinox, please proceed with the items listed under the superintendent's report.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening again, Chairwoman Jackson, Vice Chairman Dr. Baker, members of the Sumter School District Board, and of the Sumter School District community. I would like to begin by just saying congratulations to the graduating class of 2021 for achieving a significant milestone in their lives. For the past 2 weeks, we've had the opportunity to celebrate 952 graduates. 14 students qualified for the Palmetto Fellows, 158 of our students qualified for the Life Scholarship, and 357 students qualified for the Hope Scholarship. While we are sad to see our children go, we are excited for the future that waits for you. We wish our graduates nothing but the very best in their future endeavors. I also want to thank our community for supporting our graduates as we had to navigate through a couple of weather-related incidents, but nevertheless, it demonstrates the resilience that our children have as well as what our community has displayed. So I just want to say thank you. There is great news regarding one of our Crestwood juniors. Liliana Martinez Castillo has been selected as one of the top 12 students for Yes Carolina's State Business Competition for 2021. During this pandemic school year, the pressure was high for Linda Avery's entrepreneurship students to formulate real, viable business plans, and guess what? Miss Liliana did it. Check out her business called All Things Embroidery. And so we'd love to support our children, so don't forget that name, Liliana Martinez Castillo, an up-and-coming rising individual who will continue to make us proud in Sumter School District. And while we are talking about the pride, we also began to have our summer learning opportunities, which began to take place last Monday. To date, we have about 2,478 students who are participating, and we are looking for more and more students to join us throughout the summer for various reasons. So thank you to our children for being engaged in school, and understand if anybody wants to visit in terms of our board trustees, please take the opportunity to go see our students in action during this summer learning opportunity. And finally, our Sumter School District will host a virtual employment interview day on June 29th through 30th. I'll say that again, on June 29th through 30th, from 9 o'clock a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m., we will be hosting a virtual employment interview day. We are hiring elementary, middle, and high school teachers, school librarians, speech education teachers, speech pathologists, paraprofessionals, nurses, food service, building service workers, and bus drivers. In order to register, please make sure you visit sumterschools.net, click on employment opportunities, select recruitment event registration to complete the online application. And if you're not looking for a new career and you know someone who is, I'm asking that you pass this message along. It's posted on our website and on social media. This concludes the tour of Sumter, but we have additional items that fall under the superintendent's report. The next item is 6.2, which is the naming of the Adult Center, or renaming the Adult Center. As you know, back on March 22nd, we presented information as it relates to renaming the Adult Education Center. The information is contained on the website, and we are eliciting community feedback regarding the naming of our Adult Education Center. And the recommendation is to rename it after Virginia Kaiser Ray, who is a long-standing employee of Sumter School District, one who was responsible for work at the Adult Education Center. We're asking that to provide your feedback regarding the renaming of the building. Please go to our website and or use the telephone number that we have established for you to provide feedback. The next item on the superintendent's report is the Office of Special Services. We gave a presentation on inclusivity and co-teaching. And at this time, I would like to ask Ms. Veron Davis and her team to begin sharing the presentation and sharing with our audience. Good evening, Ms. Davis.
Good afternoon, Dr. Martin Knox, Chairwoman Dr. Jackson, and board members. The Office of Special Services is excited to move in a direction to further embrace inclusivity and expand the co-teaching model in our district. Members of my team tonight presenting are Mrs. Maria Nutaban, Elementary Coordinator for Special Services, Ms. McAllister, the lead psychologist, school principal Michelle McBride of Springs Elementary, along with her team members, teachers in her school who have been working in the co-teaching model as well. The goal of Sumter School District and the Office of Special Services is that all students be able to, all schools will provide inclusive, specialized services and academic and functional skills for students K through 12. These services are provided along with the South Carolina State Standards, and it prepares them to graduate from high school with a high school diploma.
Okay, good evening. I'm Laura McAllister. I'm the lead psychologist. And every year we receive a report from the State Department that provides data on certain indicators. So I'm just gonna, highlight several of the data points on our most recent report card. So at our most recent count, every October, we turn in a child count with data to the State Department. We had 2,348 students with disabilities that we serve in the school district. And of those students, approximately 50% of those students with disabilities are served in restricted instructional settings, which includes students that receive special education services for more than 50% of the day, or that receive their core academic instruction in ELA or math from a special education teacher. All of our preschool students with disabilities are served in self-contained settings. On the SC Ready assessment, only 9% of students with disabilities are meeting expectations on that assessment, and 11% are meeting expectations on the math assessment. And then 58% of students with disabilities graduate with high school diplomas, which actually means that 42% of students with disabilities do not earn a high school diploma, which would impact their ability to gain employment after high school.
Good evening. I am Maria Newton-Tabon, the elementary coordinator for special services. When we talk about root causes, we do have some questions that I will provide answers to. Why are students with disabilities in restrictive settings? Well, the state requires us to serve students with disabilities from the ages of 3 to 21. And because we do not have 3-year-old general education programs, the students are served in a class with students with developmental delays. Then in order for our 4-year-old students to attend in order for students to attend the general education 4-year-old program, they have to meet specific guidelines such as the Poverty Index and or Medicare. So with that said, there are families that have 4-year-old children, but they do not meet that state criteria to be in the general education preschool program. The next question, why are students with disabilities performing below academic expectations? Well, if we're placing students in restricted settings as early as 3 and 4-year-olds, and not exposing them to the general education setting, they don't have the opportunity to learn with their same age peers who are in the general education setting. And not only that, the preschool students with developmental delays transition to kindergarten, they have typically in our district continued that track of self-contained settings. And they continue to receive that core instruction, which is English, language arts, and math in a special education setting throughout their elementary and middle school years. And the last question, why are students with disabilities not earning high school diplomas? Well, students with disabilities, they're not earning high school diplomas because we exclude them beginning at the age of 3 years old. And we continue to exclude them, and they fall further and further behind because the instruction has been watered down and or either the expectations are low for them to be exposed or be included in the general education classes with their same age peers.
So the impact on those students, so Ms. Newton-Devon shared the lack of academic skills they have, but it also impacts their functional skills, which are like organizational skills, time management, work stamina. Often we see these students, when they do transition to a general education classroom, they don't have the skills to work independently for longer periods of time. And then they also are lacking the social emotional skills, which are relationships with peers, adults, conflict resolution skills, and some of their mental health skills that they're not having those skills and not exposed to that from their general education peers.
So as we continue with why are we moving in this direction, as we have already indicated, embracing inclusivity and co-teaching, those models expose more students to the general education curriculum, and they have access to the same programs and services as their general education peers. The number of students identified as special education, currently we have at our October count 2,348 students out of our 7,000, approximately 17,000 students in the district. Our rate of graduation and our needs for those students need to increase, and they should. Our students are capable of earning a high school diploma, and we should give them the opportunity to do so in our district.
So moving forward, Ms. Davis just mentioned two words, inclusion and co-teaching, and these two words have different meanings. One is a belief, and then one is a service delivery model. When we're speaking of inclusion, it's a belief that all students, regardless of their label, should be members of a general education population, and they should have access to the curriculum options. And as we speak of co-teaching, it's a service delivery model where the students with disabilities, they access general education curriculum in the least restricted environment. And so we have Mrs. Michelle McBride and her two teachers here with us this evening, and they're going to share some information about co-teaching.
Good evening, I'm Michelle McBride, McAllis Spouse Principal. And from an administrative perspective, McAllis Springs certainly values inclusion, and we know that students with disabilities, they feel successful, and they don't seem to feel singled out. Also, all learners certainly benefit from differentiation, and students are definitely taught acceptance, and they learn to embrace differences. At McAllis, our classes have anywhere from 20 to 40% of students with disabilities. And from a personal perspective, I was sitting in an IEP a couple weeks ago, and a parent was very concerned that her child was going to be pulled out of the general ed population, but we began to reassure her that of the inclusion model, and that her child would be actually involved in that. She really seemed relieved and very happy, so we were very thrilled with that. And I'm certainly happy for my teachers that are really embracing inclusion. So we'll let Ms. Presley and Ms. Brock give you their scenario.
Good evening, I am Rachel Presley. I am the general education teacher at Alice Springs. And just to preface with these student benefits, these benefits are not just for students with disabilities, but they also benefit the general education students. And that's one of the things that we've really gotten to see this year, is not just growth academically with our students with disabilities, but also our growth as a community in our classroom. Students take care of each other. And that's something that was really cool to see this year, especially in such a trying year.
Hello, my name is Ashley Brock. I'm the special education teacher out in Alice Springs Elementary. I kind of wanted to give it the perspective of a student that we encountered this school year, and kind of focus in on those academic skills, those functional skills, and his social emotional skills. So when he first came to us at the beginning of the school year, he had no concept of or anything. He was in the traditional, what you think of a traditional special education class, self-contained with lunch, recess, specials, related arts, all that sort of thing. He never interacted with any of the general education population throughout his day. So that went into, for his functional skills, like his stamina to be able to be on Chromebook, or just to build up his stamina to even work throughout the day. His computer skills, he would get frustrated throughout the day that he would take his Chromebook and throw it across the room because he would get to a point where he was frustrated. He couldn't log into his Chromebook, and it was just something that we worked throughout the year with. For social and emotional skills for him, he he had none, he was very shy, very reserved, he wouldn't blossom until, fast forward now to the end of the year, or at the end of the year. We watched him grow and be this social butterfly, and I think one of our, we did superlatives for our classroom, and I think that's what his was social butterfly. So he really grew, Ms. Preston said, not just academically, not also functionally, but social, and we built that community as well. I also wanted to bring up some of a benchmark that we did at the beginning of the school year, and then we did at the end of the school year. And we did a benchmark at McCalla called TE21. And at the beginning of the year, my friend, my little buddy that I'm talking about, he placed at a 1.7%, not answering many of the questions, leaving most of these questions blank. And then towards the end of that, when we retook the test again at the end of the year, he answered all of those questions. So he built up that stamina and was able to complete all of those, he completed the test, and he was able to have a growth of 27%. Overall, both of our special education students and our general education students had a growth of 15 to 20%. So I was very proud of the success that we made this year.
Students were not the only ones that grew this year. We also got to grow as professionals. There are things that general education teachers are not instructed with during our time in college. And so for me, as the general education teacher, I was able to really work with Ashley and learn different skills and strategies to use with these students. And that helped me grow because it was like every day was a professional development that I was actually witnessing in the classroom. And vice versa. I know she could say the same thing with the way general education teachers plan. And so it was really sharing the load. The yours and the mine jobs kind of went away and everything was ours. So we shared the load for planning, instruction. You couldn't tell who the special education teacher was and who the general education teacher was. And that's what we wanted. And at the end of the day, our biggest was that the students had multiple advocates for them. So they had multiple people building relationships with them, and they knew that they had multiple adults in the building that cared for them, and it wasn't just one teacher. And all of them thought it was amazing that they got to have 2 or 3 whenever we had the split classes per subject. So for them, it was a great benefit, but also for us, I can't stop smiling when she talks about that student, because it was the highlight of our year. Whenever you see the light bulb kick on for kids, it's an amazing thing. So we will never forget this year with this growth that we've seen.
Thanks, Ms. McBride and Ms. Freshman, Ms. Brock. I just also like to add that on a recent visit that I had to the school, doing our virtual platform where we're delivering services to our student, I stopped by this classroom. The 2 of them were actively working together in the same room, providing services to students in the co-teaching model. And to see them in action was simply incredible and amazing. And it just made me feel so good to see how they have the perfect marriage in the world of co-teaching. The term is called marriage. And they truly have been essential in advocating for students and moving in this direction. With the implementation plan, we will develop a Sumter School District inclusive service delivery framework team, July to August of 2021. They will mirror this South Carolina State Service Inclusive Service Delivery Model. July to October, the team will communicate with all stakeholders to include our school leaders, school staff, parents, and community members. In July, a team will attend a co-teaching train-the-trainer training model conference virtually And we will, use those tools to train the district and provide professional development services throughout the year for a full year. In August, of 2022, we will be moving in direction to have the model at all, elementary schools, and then we'll move our focus to the secondary level, during this time. Do you have any questions for the team?
Yes, Dr. Baker?
Yes, thank you. More clarification to questions. We already had inclusion in the district, so how is this going to be? Is this going to be now every school will have inclusion, or is this going to be on the focus of the elementary schools?
Our goal is that every school will have, focusing on inclusion. Dr. Baker, we do have some schools where our students, they just wanna eat at the cafeteria table. They're still excluded at lunch. So we do have some work to do in this district. Why we are focusing on moving in this direction, where all means all across the entire district. We do want to, in this first year, have the model complete. We'll have the presentation in PD, for the elementary level, and then year 2, yes, Derek will follow suit as well.
Okay, and the second
We do
thing-
need to expand our inclusive practices, we really do, as a district.
Yeah, second thing is, several years ago, the federal government cited several states and school districts in those states that had too high of a percentage of our students in special education. And South Carolina was one of the states, and our district was one. And I noticed the numbers, 2,300 plus kids in the program, and we probably got about not even 16,000 kids enrolled. And the figure that they had cited and the goal they wanted the districts to work toward was 10% of the student population. So is that still something that's in effect for our school district and our state?
Absolutely, and one of the areas that we will be working on as a district along with the state, as Mr. Newton-Devon said, our state guidelines start our students off 3 and 4 year olds identified in a self-contained setting, and based on the track record of those students, they continue that pathway. But we want that conversation to start at age of 5 instead of waiting until they're 9 to start having that conversation about are they no longer development delay or what do they need? So we want that conversation to start earlier. We can start exposing students to the state standards earlier, so they'll have an opportunity to earn that high school diploma. We have found that many of our middle schools are saying to us that we see that our students, they have, we need to start exposing them more. And so our middle schoolers start putting them in those classes. And then once they get to high school, the high school's principals will share with us that sometimes students still aren't as comfortable as they should be, because at the elementary level, the foundation of where it starts, we need to expand on that. So our high school teachers and staff are faced with that final leg of their education, and they have to make decisions at that point of, will this student be able to earn a high school diploma, or will they graduate with a certificate? And many of them have found that if they work a little bit harder with the time giving, and students are allowed to 10 students until they're 21, they are able to help capture some of those students and they earn a high school diploma.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Hearing none, Dr.
I have a question.
Okay, Mrs. Ray?
So just so I'm clear on this, so by, August of 22, we'll have no self-contained classes in elementary school. Is that correct?
That is not necessarily true. We do need to offer self-contained classes for a certain population of students, and we will continue those students. But we do have some students who are currently in self-contained classes that we can push out. And we want to focus on those students who we can push out.
And when you start in the secondary setting, will that be as the kids are going grade to grade, or will that all come at one time like the elementary?
We're going to, have, the secondary folks at the table when we plan a discussion. Quite naturally, we would need to start at sixth grade and then expand from there.
And I don't know, I'm not sure if you call them this now, no, but how does this affect resource students? Are they already doing this, or is it just?
And you're correct, that is a, population of students that we need to tap in and move them into those general education, classes more and have more exposure to the curriculum.
So at this point, they're still.
Yes, and during that resource time, which we refer to, which is a block that we provide, services to students to help them, with accommodations and providing extra instruction or additional instruction from the special education teachers during that core time.
So they'll still be pulled out during
Yes,
that time?
they could be pulled out, yes.
And what about the self-contained students? Would they have that also, you think?
It will be case by case based on some of their needs, but, as I said before, all students can be exposed to peers at some point during the day, instead of being totally excluded. It depends on their student and their needs, but our goal is that we have all students exposed to their general education peers at some point during the day. Even you would be surprised, even if it's, and I don't, like, but recess is a big factor as well. We have students who want to be on the same playground with their peers, and some do, but some don't, and that's being honest.
Yeah, exactly. Back some years ago, we did this at Lakewood with the, resource students, did inclusion, and it worked really well to have the teachers together working, so, I think this is a really good idea, so thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Ray. Any other additional questions? Okay, hearing none, Dr. Penelope, you may proceed.
Yes, ma'am. The next item on the agenda will be Dr. Laws. He will be standing in for Dr. McLeod, and we will hear information as it pertains to the Virtual Academy presentation for Ed Options Academy from Edmonton. So Dr. Laws.
Good evening, Chairwoman Jackson, Vice Chairman Baker, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Dr. Martin Knox. I would like to introduce to you this evening Mr. John Robert Jackson and Ms. Jody Oakley, representing Edmonton. Edmonton has been reviewed as a possible solution to provide rigorous, high-quality instruction for our students who may attend our virtual learning academy for the 2021-2022 school year. They're going to take about 15 minutes to make a presentation today of their services. I present to you Edmonton.
Thank you, Dr. Laws. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Martin Knox. We are absolutely thrilled to be here with you guys today. I'm John Robert Jackson. I'm coming to you right up the road from Lexington, South Carolina. I'm your local representative with Edmonton, and I also have my colleague on with me, Jody Oakley, who's going to be sharing our screen and our presentation with you. We're going to spend just a few minutes, as Dr. Law said, just giving you a quick overview of the presentation, just kind of what our offerings through our virtual partnerships with our districts are, and then give you some time to ask some questions here at the end, and just kind of keep it pretty short and sweet. So we're going to really hear us talk a lot about Ed Options Academy. And really what Ed Options Academy is really us providing that certified teacher pair with our curriculum. And so this quick 90-second little video is going to help us set the stage that we want to share with you. So Jody, if you don't mind sharing that with us.
For a growing number of students, the traditional classroom simply isn't the right fit. Maybe the classroom presents too many distractions for effective learning. Or maybe students are looking for course options that aren't currently being offered. Virtual schooling is great growing in popularity, and the right partnership can go a long way toward helping your school or district meet student needs and retain enrollment. Edmonton's EdOptions Academy is a fully accredited virtual education partner. Our academy is powered by Edmonton courseware and is taught by experienced teachers certified in your state. Teachers build rapport with students through emails, phone calls, text messages, and even through live tutoring sessions. They are continually monitoring progress and providing feedback to ensure students are on pace toward course completion. EdOptions Academy provides over 400 semesters of courses, covering a broad range of course subjects, CTE, electives, world languages, and advanced courses. Additionally, we are nationally recognized by review organizations, including Academic Benchmarks, ISTE, NCAA, and Quality Matters. We'll work with you to develop an implementation plan tailored for your school or district and help you achieve your program goals. EdOptions Academy partners with you to support graduation rates and college and career readiness beyond the traditional classroom.
Thank you, Jody, for sharing that. So that just kind of gives you a quick idea of what EdOptions Academy is and what we are able to do when we partner with schools and districts to provide virtual learning for your students. And so we're a fully accredited virtual school program. We have a 92% passing rate and an 80% course completion rate. And what we do is we provide this highly qualified state certified teachers that are experienced in delivering online instruction. We pair those teachers with our curriculum, and we partner with your district to deliver that online instruction for your virtual students that choose that option to attend their schooling. We provide flexible program implementations and management designs for virtual learning, so they can be a full-time student, they could be a hybrid student where they attend partially in your brick and mortar, but maybe partially virtual. They could take one-off courses with us where potentially they need to take a course virtually just to continue that credit so they don't lose that. So there's multiple options that students can participate in with our virtual program. And you heard in the video that we're accredited by Cognia, which is formerly Advanced Ed, which allows us to be able to transfer credits to your school and also receive credit from your school if we need to do that as well. And we also provide that end-to-end management services so we can, handle with rostering and marketing students and marketing to your community if you need. So we provide all different types of end-to-end management services as well. What's included when you partner with EdOptions Academy? You've heard me mention you get the curriculum paired with that South Carolina certified teacher, but they will be delivering both live lessons as well as some asynchronous opportunities for students as well. So they'll have both synchronous and asynchronous opportunities. The students will attend live lessons daily within their schedule that allows them to attend. There'll be help sessions where teachers will be able to offer sessions of time that are outside of those live lessons that students can attend. They'll have one-on-one tutoring. So if a teacher sees that a student is struggling on a particular concept, they'll be able to request that student come to their tutoring time, just as your brick and mortar teacher is most likely to do today. And then we'll also have teacher communication by the teacher to the student as well as to the families. There's a parent portal so that parents can check the progress of their students 24/7 in the virtual environment. And there's ongoing consultative help, resources, and training that we have a virtual academy success implementation contact that will work along with Dr. Laws to help him with ongoing support in planning and development of the virtual academy there in Sumter.
Thank you, John Robert. I'm going to talk a little bit about our EdOptions Academy teachers. And before I do that, though, I'd like for them to introduce themselves to you, and you can hear a little bit directly from our teachers themselves. So let me just open that up.
And they can access us in their own comfort level. So if they're not comfortable getting on a video with us, they can text us. If their schedule only allows email, we're available via email. And having that open line of communication, that
we say, build the school around the student.
If you looked at our professional development calendar, it would slightly make your head spin, right? We have buckets of our teachers have to go to these sessions, we have these suggested should go sessions, and we have the wish list sessions. And we created those around assessments and conversations and relationships with teachers.
And I take it as my responsibility. It's, that if you're not coming, what am I doing wrong? And so what opportunities do I have to go grow and learn and build and share?
The first day of school, we're not diving into the curriculum. I want to know who's on the other side of the screen. I want to see my student, I want to see their family.
We have to, that very first day, help them understand how to navigate the environment as well as feel our excitement that we have them in our classroom.
It's about building that enthusiasm. That first day sets the tone. We want them to come back the next day.
In virtual education, every child has the opportunity to sit in the front row middle seat. We need to get them there.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about who our teachers are, now that you got to meet two of them. I do have two quick stories about Diane McRandall, who you saw at the end of that clip. She is one of our phenomenal teachers who really takes it that extra step to get to know her students, as you'll find with many of our teachers. But Diane in particular, I don't know if you noticed in the background, there was a puppet, a large poster of a puppet in the background of her, and it turned out that one of her students, who she had actually multiple semesters with this student, was working independently because she traveled and she was a performer. She ended up on America's Got Talent, and she and Diane created this dynamic that they just really adored each other, and virtually, of course, recreated this relationship. And when she happened to be in the surrounding area where Diane lives, the student sent some tickets over to Diane so the two of them could actually meet in person when she was having her performance in a nearby city where Diane lives. And then another story about Diane that I just love is she had a group of students all year because they were without a teacher, and she was their teacher of record just for that one particular class. District was lacking in that one teacher area. And at the end of the year, Diane showed up, surprised. She obviously set it up with the school district, but she drove 5 hours from her home and she took all the kids pizza at lunch at the end of the year, just so she could meet them face to face, because she had built this relationship with them all year long and really wanted to celebrate their accomplishments and being successful in the virtual environment. So aside from those anecdotal stories about our teachers, I do want to revisit some of our points about our teachers. They are all state certified and they are specially trained in online learning. So our teachers are trained against the INACOL standards of virtual instruction, and that's really, really important because it helps to keep those students engaged. It helps build those strong relationships with students that I mentioned previously with Diane and other teachers. And it allows them to host effective live lessons and collaborative sessions with their students. A lot of our students are virtual for lots of different reasons, but what ties them all together is that they're using all these tools and they need to have that teacher in front of them that is adept with all those tools and strong in that area. And then they're obviously able to provide that detailed feedback that every teacher needs to provide to those students individually and with families themselves. John Robert, I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jody. So I want to dive a little bit into talk a little bit about the curriculum that your students will be engaging with, along with in conjunction with our state certified teachers. So we're the industry leader in our standards-based online curriculum, and as Jody mentioned, the INACOL standards, we're also aligned to ISTE as well as Quality Matters. And as a matter of fact, Jody, I think the next little slide there shows you that we're one of the leading organizations with the Quality Matters, having the leading number of courses approved by Quality Matters. And so we're always striving to be a leader in this area of high quality instruction that your students will be engaged with. So I want to talk a little bit about what courses we offer. So we have a wide array of courses that your students will be able to take. So those, of course, the core courses will be available for your students, along with elective courses, CTE courses, world languages, which would include, Spanish, French, Chinese, even American Sign Language is embedded in there. There's going to be multimedia learning activities for your students to engage in, as well as some formative practice built in. Jody is pulling up now just kind of our course catalog, just so you can kind of see the breadth and offerings that we can offer grades 6 through 12 for your students that would be taking online courses in your virtual academy. And so we can provide this comprehensive list to you, but your student would have the ability really to take most any course on this list that is there. So, and there, as I mentioned, there's a wide range of offerings there. And one last point there is that there are some projects built into the course curriculum. So students will not only work through just the content and taking their online lessons and quizzes, but they'll also have cumulative course projects embedded at the end of those as well that they'll be able to work on. So some project-based learning as well, so they can have some time outside of that screen time to work on their assignments as well. Okay, Jody?
Sure. And so what we have here is just a list to talk through a little bit about some of the districts in the state that also utilize that Options Academy. Keep in mind that there are various use cases, and some of those use cases are different from district to district or even within one particular district. So some of these districts here might be utilizing an Options Academy for full-time virtual students. They may also be utilizing it for a teacher shortage area where they may simply not have, a photography teacher or a math teacher for an advanced math class, and they come to us to help them with that need. Some districts like to utilize Ad Options Academy to expand to their course offerings. Perhaps if students are interested in something that the district's not able to fill a full class and staff that for, those students can take those passion courses through a virtual environment. And so there are many reasons that districts utilize Ad Options Academy. In particular, there are, the virtual piece is really important to a military connected community, and we work strongly with military connected communities. I particularly live in North Carolina, and I'm very close to Camp Lejeune. So Onslow County Schools utilizes it in all those different use cases that we discussed. They actually use Ad Options Academy very much across their district, but it allows their students, as their families transition out and move on to different phases and different parts of the world, they're allowing their students to finish out that course with their cohort and with the students that they've been working with all along. So there are so many reasons why districts utilize the virtual environment, and we're happy and excited to build those with you.
So we're going to just take a few minutes and see if there's any questions from the board or members of the team.
Okay. Dr. Hilton?
You mentioned the course catalog was from 6 through 12. Is this will this program be available for elementary students as well, or only middle and high?
We can offer grades K through 5 if that is a need of the district. We can certainly do that. But I think our focus right now was 6 through 12, but we can certainly offer K through 5 if that is a need.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am, I have one. This is Mac.
Okay.
And this would probably be for Dr. Martin Knox. Would this be something that we would offer openly, or is this something that would be for special circumstances, like a homebound student that couldn't come face to face?
Yes, sir. Those are the right reasons that we will be offering this option for our students. We know we have students with underlying health conditions, and we know that many of them will not be able to return back to school. So we will continue to work with our principals, and so they will have an application, if you will, for students to be able to apply for this approach. Because as you know, Dr. Hilton had shared that information before in one of his legislative briefings in terms of the impact if we have too many students who have a virtual option. So we have to put parameters around those students who will have access to this approach. And so we'll work collectively with Okay, I saw you nodding your
And so
head.
it would be special situations, medical or whatever. It would not be just open to everyone
That's correct, sir.
that just wanted to do it, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I have a question for Dr. Martin.
okay. That's great.
Sort of a follow-up to, Max's question, Dr. Martin. We had said maybe the district would have a virtual academy. We would not go that route. We would only go this route to serve the kids that had these special needs.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just one clarification.
Yes, sir.
And just for clarification, it's K through 12 or 6 through 8?
We were looking 6 through 12.
Okay.
Any other questions? No concerns? Any questions? Okay, hearing none,
So thank you, team. Thank you for presenting again. I know that you presented, we might as well just put you on the time clock here in Sumter School District, and I don't mind doing that. I appreciate you sharing your expertise with us and the ways in which we can continue to partner to educate our children. So thank you all so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Dr. Martin Knopf. Thank you, Dr. Laws, for having us, and just keep us posted how we can continue to assist your students and your staff there in Sumter School District.
Yes, sir. Thank you all.
we do appreciate you.
Dr. Laws, as I indicated earlier, will be taking or filling in for Dr. McLeod. So Dr. Laws, the next item is the textbook adoption.
Yes, members of the board, the protocol has already been established. I'd like to present to you the list of textbook adoptions for the 2021-2022 school year. This list is a little bit different this year because we did not have the opportunity to do the full caravan, but the State Department alerted us earlier that we could go ahead and begin to review the textbooks for possible adoption. We don't know that whether they'll be funded until July, but we wanted to make sure that we have those resources approved prior to the new school year. So there was only one selection for Spanish, so there was not an option to choose multiple books for Spanish. So what I presented to you was the teachers and the coordinator's recommendation for the Spanish adoption. And then the next are the books up for adoption of math books. And the math books, there were more than one selection. The high school teachers, this is at the high school level, they met at the high school level, reviewed the material from the vendors, and they selected for college prep and AP, the probability and stats, the pre-calculus, discrete math, and the calculus book for their recommendation for your approval.
Are there any questions for Dr. Laws on the textbook adoption? And like Amy said, this will be an action item when we come back from executive session. Okay, hearing none, thank you, Dr. Laws.
And Dr. Laws, the final item, 6.6 from the Office of Academics, Title 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 authorizations.
Okay, good evening again. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the board that of the authorization that is required annually for Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV. The board must authorize the superintendent to serve as the representative for the South Carolina Department of Education application for grants. Title I provides federal funds to schools with high percentages of low-income students. These funds pay for extra educational services to help at-risk students achieve and exceed regardless of their disadvantages through no fault of their own. Title II funds are intended to increase student academic achievement by supporting high-quality, evidence-based professional development for teachers and instructional leaders. These funds should be used to implement professional development activities that are sustained, intensive, collaborative, job-embedded, data-driven, and classroom-focused. Title III funding is designed to improve the education of English language learners by helping them to learn English and to meet challenging state academic achievement standards. And finally, Title IV, student support and academic enrichment. These funds are used to provide all students with access to a well-rounded education, improve school conditions for student learning, and increase the use of technology to enhance the academic achievement and digital literacy of all students. These authorizations will be presented for the board approval under the action required section of the agenda. Are there any questions?
Questions? Any questions? No questions?
So thank you, Dr. Laws. The next item, 6.7 from the Office of Finance. Ms. Miller will present to you the general fund statement of revenues and expenditures through May 31st, 2021. Good evening, Ms. Miller.
Good evening. Good evening, Chairwoman Dr. Barbara Jackson, Vice Chairman Dr. Frank Baker, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Martin Knox. This evening, we have the May 31st, 2021 revenue and expenditures for the general fund. We have adjusted the total revenue figures for the teacher lump sum payment and an increase in fee in lieu of taxes. The fee in lieu of taxes projection was increased by approximately $68,000, which is based on actual collections. And then for the teacher lump sum increase, in the April 30th report, that figure was projected down in the other financing sources section of the report. However, the state utilized the revenue code 3189, and the amount did not change, but it's just where it's presented to the board. And you can see here in revenue code 3189, we received $634,771 for that lump sum payment. I think it's important to point out that while we did receive that amount, the actual cost to pay for that lump sum payment was just over $1 million, and that is because our teacher's salary scale is higher than the state scale, which we are funded on. After both of these adjustments, the total projected revenue as of May 31st, 2021 for fiscal year 21 is projected to be $127,826,709. Moving on to expenditures, the expenditures have been adjusted and will continue to be adjusted as we close out the year. Payroll was adjusted by a decrease of approximately $200,000. Total projection of expenditures as of May 31st, 2021 for fiscal year 21 is $123,679,342. Other financing sources, as mentioned during the revenue discussion earlier, the teacher lump sum payment from the state was projected in this section last month, and we have moved it now up into the revenue section. The figure did not change, and then this was also offset by an increase in the indirect cost, which is based on grant activity. This brings the projected change in fund balance for the year to $4,967,051. As stated previously, this figure will change as we close out the year for the annual financial statement audit with our routine year-end adjustments. Are there any questions?
Yes, Mr. Austin?
Yes, this question for Ms. Miller. Has the administration looked at the fiscal impact that the $1,000 increase on top of the step increase will have on our general fund balance?
Did you hear him?
No, I did not. Can you please repeat it?
He asked if the administration has looked at the fiscal impact that the step increase and then the $1,000 bonus would have on our fund balance.
The step increase for next fiscal year, I would anticipate would be around, the $1 million figure that we just did for the lump sum payment, so it will cost us approximately $400,000. As far as the $1,000 increase, because that's a flat amount that the state is actually adding to their scale, that $1,000 will not have an impact on the school district because the state should fully fund the $1,000. The part that we have to fund is the difference in our scale with the state scale.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Miller, you probably know which accounts I want to ask you about in terms of the revenue. And the first one is the vocational, and it looks like it's down by 2.1 million.
Yes, sir, that is what the figures are showing.
And we've had this dialogue last year, and it took about 2 years to get an answer. And it was basically said at the beginning of last school year, the reason was because of the way the course was aligned with 8th grade. And I believe Dr. Laws and Dr. Halfman and Dr. McLeod shared that wouldn't be the case this year. Now we finished this school year and we're still down by over $2 million. Why is that the case?
One thing I do want to point out, you have to remember we were operating with a continuing resolution for last year. So the budget of the 6.9 million was actually the prior year's revenue amount that was not adjusted for the decrease that we experienced last year. So you have to remember that is a projected revenue from 2 years ago, from the June 30th, 2020 year.
Okay, and our projected decrease based on our decrease in student enrollment, is that what you're referring to?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
When you said the projected amount from that year and the decrease, is that based on the projected decrease that we had in our enrollment this year?
I would have to refresh my memory on the fiscal year 20 budget. I'd have to look at what our actual fiscal year 20 revenue was. And then I know we did not adjust the projections last year because we were operating under a continuing resolution, so there was no need to project based on enrollment last year.
Okay, and the second one is that speech handicap. It looks like almost $1 million, $993,000. And I know I questioned that last year too. Is that the same thing with that?
Yes, sir. This was this June 30th, 2020 original budget that was approved by the board that we operated under with the continuing resolution. So again, yes, that is a projection from 2 years ago, and it has not been adjusted for the enrollment that we were made aware of last year.
Okay, so, and the third one is pupils in poverty, down by 221,000. Have we lost? I mean, how did we come with that decrease?
Again, I would have to look into what we had for June 30th, 20. I know the budget that I used this year was based on the actual enrollment and the figures provided by the state based on our 135th day.
Yeah, and I realize that, and that was one of the things that I was very concerned about, was that we had all of this correct by the 135th day. And I asked this question too before. If we had that much of a decrease in revenue, did we eliminate any positions? And the answer was no. So if we're starting a new school year and we won't be operating on that revised or that old budget, are we in line to not have the same problem this incoming school year?
And I will defer that one to Dr. Martin Knox as far as how we projected the teachers and the allocation remain consistent.
So one of the things that we've looked at, and you're right, you've asked those questions before, and what we've talked about is making sure that we have the staffing to accommodate our students as we anticipate their return. So like even if we look at now, the summer school, the number of students who are accessing summer school, it looks like our projection will return. We are making sure, however, that we have a student-to-teacher ratio that is not overburdening for our teachers, but also making sure we have enough teachers to meet the needs of our children. And so because we went through this year, what was it, John, 28, what was the last figure we had for vacancies? 28.5?
For this year, it is 22.5, ending now this year.
So we've operated with those vacancies, and if we eliminate any more or make any more adjustments, we could find ourselves at a deficit when it comes down to our student-to-teacher ratio. So we're continuing to look at the number of students that are returning, looking at our enrollment, as you said, waiting to the 135th day to make sure that we've increased our student enrollment. We've still continued our efforts in trying to find students that we lost during the pandemic, but it looks like our numbers are increasing. So what I don't want to do is eliminate courses, and I will have students who will need those courses. And one of the things that we can do, because the funding from the ESSER funds, because those funds should use specifically for those areas or matters in which the pandemic has impacted and the loss of student enrollment is as a result of the pandemic. We could actually fund those positions with using those ESSER funds to make sure that we have quality and we have the number of teachers that are necessary in our buildings.
And I understand that and I appreciate that. And I still feel though, particularly that vocational piece, it
Yes.
goes back to
Yes, sir.
the way those courses were coded.
Yes, sir.
And the other thing that really concerns me, if we, with the speech handicap, that, are we serving those kids or are we not serving those kids? If we're not serving those kids, we're in violation. And that's almost $1 million. So that one, I understand the vocational piece because I don't think that, as they explained, that the way they were using the coding back in the 8th grade, then
Yes, sir.
that explained that. But that speech handicap, that's a big chunk of kids there. So are we not serving those kids?
So Veron, you want to jump in there with the, I see you unmute.
Yes, sir. To reiterate that, we are serving the students. However, the funding source is based on the primary disability of that student being served as a speech and language student. So if a student is primary disability is LD, but secondary disability is speech and language, then the funding source is different.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that, but a lot of this would be at the elementary level, and a lot of them would just be coded for speech because that would be the only service they were receiving. And I'm just wondering if a lot of that will be those kids, and are we actually providing the service for those kids? And more at the elementary level, and only the ones that are categorized as receiving speech services, not any other disabilities support service.
Yeah. Yes, and some of those students, the speech therapists actually serve those students in settings outside the district, such as daycare. Some of our speech-only students, they are served that way.
Yeah, and that leads me back to, are we counting those kids if we're serving them? I know we do a lot of speech services, for example, at the early Head Start or the Head Start centers. And are we counting those kids, and are we getting credit for those kids, so to speak?
Yes, those kids are counted in our count.
Okay, thank you.
And what we can do, Dr. Baker, we can go back and review and just cross-reference those students with the services that they're receiving. I know we continue to look at it with our supervisors and special services and with Ms. Davis, but we can go back and double check just to make sure those students who are now, because we've been out of the pandemic, we need to make sure kids are coded correctly.
Yeah, and that we are serving the ones we're supposed to be serving.
Yes, well, that's the biggest piece.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Cheryl or Matt? Okay, no questions from them. All right, Dr. Penelope, no
Sure.
additional questions?
I don't have any.
Okay, and Ms. Miller, moving on to 6.8, the capital projects update through May 31st.
Yes, ma'am. You have funds 519 through 526, we were able to upload the budget for our spring bond, which is Fund 526. If you have any questions on capital projects, I will take those now.
Any questions? Any questions of Ms. Miller? I don't think we do. Hearing none.
And the final item under the superintendent's tour Sumter is from Ms. Miller again, the fiscal year 2022 proposed budget. And so let me just publicly say thank you, Ms. Miller, for providing an update for our community with the voice over PowerPoint, just to give an understanding of the data as it presents itself. So just thank you for doing that. And so now 6.9.
All right. The Sumter School District General Fund revised, sorry, my screen just changed, revised proposed budget fiscal year 2021-22. Last month, I presented the Sumter School District proposed general fund budget for fiscal year 21-22. This evening, we will discuss the proposed changes to that budget based on the information that was received since May 10th, 2021. Please keep in mind that these are projected figures as of June 9th, 2021, based on the information that's available at that time. As Dr. Hilton mentioned during the legislative update, the state has not finalized the budget yet, and they do anticipate that they will have that passed sometime in late June. Moving on to the next slide, you have a table that details the change from the budget presented on May 10th, 2021, compared to this evening's presentation on June 14th, 2021. If you recall, at the May 10th meeting, the board was informed that the budget included a 1% increase in local tax revenue that was calculated based on a growth factor provided by the county in the prior year. It was also discussed that the figure could change depending on the reassessment and the rollback of the millage, as that was still in process. Additionally, the board was informed that the proposed budget did not include a cost of living or a step increase for any employees other than the teachers. Those items have now been adjusted, and you can see that the total revenue and expenditures changed by $110,704. On the next slide, you can see the change in the revenue. At the May 10th meeting, we did not have the final calculation of the rollback millage. As such, we estimated the revenue based on fiscal year 2020 actual tax revenue collected, as revenue should not decrease with a rollback. Because we used the 2020 and not the 2020 revenue, we increased that figure by approximately 1%, which was based on projected growth factors provided by the county in the prior year. The revenue for the audited financial statements for June 30th, 2020 was $29,419,704. As such, with a 1% increase, we have $29,765,000 as of May 10th that you can see on this slide. Now that the rollback is complete, the projected value of the mill is estimated to be $187,426, and the rollback number of mills is now 157.4. As such, the projected revenue for the final budget discussed this evening, we increased that number of mills by 2, which was approved by County Council on June 8, 2021. So the number of mills is 159.4 times the $187,426. You can see now that the change in the projected revenue is $110,704. Next, if we move on to the expenditures, the salaries and benefits were increased for that step increase for staff, which was approximately $604,000. And then to balance the budget, we increased our vacancy allowance for the difference of $493,296. Please keep in mind that to balance the budget that was presented on May 10th,
we built in a vacancy allowance of $967,306. This allowance was calculated based on 20 positions. Again, to balance the budget as of June 14th, we increased that vacancy allowance. It went from 20 positions to 35 positions. That is 10 teaching positions and 25 support staff positions. It's important that everyone recognize that if those positions are filled, the district could potentially go over budget by approximately $1.5 million and thus need to utilize the fund balance to cover reoccurring costs that are built into the budget. Balancing a budget based on vacancies is not a long-term solution for the district. Please also keep in mind that this budget excludes the fiscal year 1920 frozen positions. You may recall that we had approximately 25 positions with a value of approximately $1 million that were frozen during fiscal year 1920. Those positions have not been added back to the budget. We will monitor the budget throughout the fiscal year, and if we fall below the 35 vacancies for the vacancy allowance, we will need to make adjustments as needed. Are there any questions related to the general fund budget for fiscal year 22?
Questions, ladies and gentlemen? Questions? Any questions? Hearing none. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, ma'am. This concludes the superintendent's report for the evening, and thank you for your attention.
And thank each of you that provided input for this evening. We do appreciate you and for a job well done. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our district attorney, Ms. Connie Jackson, who came in. So I'd like to mention that she's here. I mentioned that she was going to be joining us, but she is here. So now is with 7-point executive session. The agenda now calls for the board to enter into executive session. I want to take this opportunity once again to thank viewers for joining us tonight. And we hope you will be with us when we return to open session. If you are not or unable to be with us at that time, we wish you a safe and great week. Thank you for being with us this evening. Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we enter into executive session for receipt of legal advice where the legal advice relates to pending, threatened, or potential claims, discussion of proposed property contractual matters, discussion of proposed contractual matters, discussion of individual student matters, discussion of employee B grievance requests, and discussion of personnel report, employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, termination, and or release of an employee.
Second.
Okay. So there is a motion and a second that the board enter into executive session for the receipt of legal advice where the legal advice relates to pending, threatened, or potential claims, discussion of proposed property contractual matters, discussion of proposed contractual matters, discussion of individual student matters, discussion of employee B grievance requests, and discussion of personnel report, employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, termination, and or release of an employee. Are there any discussion? Please cast your vote electronically.
Ray is not, I don't see her online.
here.
Are you, voting to go into executive session? Thank you. That's unanimous.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
I'd like to make a motion that the chair be allowed to issue a public statement on behalf of the board.
Your second.
Is there, the second?
Second.
Okay, a motion has been passed, a motion has been made and seconded that the chair allows, the chair be allowed to issue a public statement on behalf of the board. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, and the statement is, on behalf of the Sumter School District Board of Trustees, we would like to clarify any concerns raised by several articles published by the item alleging the board's recent change involving Administrative Rule BDE-R. Board committees may have violated the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. Board members were contacted by the newspaper for a response. However, instead of allowing the paper to interpret our responses and allow the attorney from South Carolina Press Association to provide an opinion on it, we thought it best to use our forum to respond to the allegations. Initially, for the record, we disagreed with the Press Association's attorney assessment that the board did not act within the parameters of FOIA. In this case, the board is dealing with an administrative rule by the terms of our own policy, specifically policy BD/BGD, School Board Policy Process/Board Review of Administrative Rules. The requirements for proposed policy change is not the same for an administrative rule. In most cases, the administration is permitted to issue additional rules and procedures consistent with board policy, and the administrative rule does not need to come before the board for approval. We did not change our position on community engagement. We changed the area where we thought community members would be more effective. Our district made a conscious decision in 2019 to involve community members in our district's educational processes. We continue to believe community engagement is an ongoing collaborative process during which the district will strive to work with the public to build understanding, seek guidance, and encourage active involvement in the education decisions of the Sumter School District. For the first time since revising our administrative rule in 2019, our Citizens Advisory Committee is finally operational, and we see the huge potential to work with community members to develop a better understanding of the public's needs, concerns, and expectations. By utilizing individuals from standing committees, we see the opportunity to bring parents, business people, and other valued members of the community together to actively support our students, their education, and the school system as a whole for the betterment of Sumter County. While the standing committees function only through specific directions of the board, we believe that all community members serving together on one committee will be a powerful agent for bringing the community together to address education issues. We look our shared vision of equipping our students to be responsible, successful, and productive citizens in a global society. Thank you. Dr. Martin Knox, we're now down to 9.2. Do you have a recommendation for the student matter transfers?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chairwoman. I ask the board to approve the student matters that were discussed today in executive session.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve and accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding student matters and transfers.
Second.
A motion has been made and second to accept the superintendent's recommendation for vote approval of the individual student matters transfers. Is there any discussion?
We lost Matt McLeod from the meeting. I'm not sure what happened.
Please cast your vote electronically.
We lost Matt McLeod from the meeting. He's disconnected.
We're trying to reach out to Matt McLeod, who's dropped, and we're trying to get him back on. Need be.
He's in. You're joining the meeting again, Lisa. Are you able to vote online? You're not on the list. I can put your vote in if you want, and if you need it, speakerphone, you want to vote that way. The personal report. Mr. McLeod, you're now on speakerphone?
Yes. Personnel report, yes.
It's not personnel,
Yeah,
it's
that's
individual
Oh, I'm
student
sorry, it's
matters.
the individual student matters,
Transfers.
because they're wild.
Oh, yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. We're now down to 9.3, personnel report. Dr. Martin Knox, do you have a recommendation for the personnel report?
Yes, ma'am. I ask the board to approve the June personnel report as presented in executive session.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and the personnel report as presented.
A motion has been made and second to accept the superintendent's recommendation for board approval of the June personnel report. Is there any discussion? If not, please cast your vote electronically.
But it passed.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
No, not unanimous.
Not unanimous?
No, unanimous.
Okay, the motion passes, okay. All righty, Dr. Martin Knox, do we have another recommendation?
Yes, ma'am. I ask the board to uphold the decision regarding employee A as discussed in executive session.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding employee B and deny employee B's request to be heard regarding this matter before the Board of School Trustees.
Okay.
A for the 2021-22 school year based on such order being prepared by legal counsel and having been reviewed by the board.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Sorry, I
Oh,
couldn't
sorry.
hear that.
I'm sorry.
Could you repeat it again, because, Ms. Ray could not hear that.
Well,
Everything's getting distorted for some
Okay.
reason.
you want me to read it again?
Read it again, Dr. Hilton, please.
I move that we authorize the board chairperson to execute an order on behalf of the board of trustees affirming the non-renewal from employment of a professional employee, employee A, for the 2021-22 school year based on such order being prepared by legal counsel and having been reviewed by the board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. A motion has been made and second that we authorize the board chairperson to execute an order on behalf of the Board of Trustees affirming the non-renewal of employment of a professional employee, employee A, for the 2021-22 school year, based on such order being prepared by legal counsel and having been reviewed by the board. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote electronically.
It did pass unanimous.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. 9.4, Dr. Martinox, do you have a motion for the employee B? A recommendation for employee B grievance requests.
Yes, ma'am, I asked the board to uphold the decision that was discussed in executive session regarding employee.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding employee B and deny employee B's request to be heard regarding this matter by the Board of School Trustees.
Second.
A motion has been made and second that the board accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding employee B and deny employee B's request to be heard regarding the matter by the board, the school board, the trustees. Is there any question? Or is there any discussion? Okay, please cast your vote electronically.
And that was unanimous.
The motion passes unanimously. We're now down to 9.5, textbook adoptions. Dr. Martinox, do you have a recommendation for the textbook adoption?
Yes, ma'am. I asked the board to approve the K-5 and high school math, K-5 Spanish, and the high school math textbook adoption.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the board accepts the superintendent's recommendation for approval of the K-5 grade Spanish and high school math textbook adoption.
Second.
A motion has been made and second to accept the superintendent's recommendation for board approval of the K-5 Spanish and high school math textbook adoption. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote electronically.
It's, unanimous.
The motion passes unanimously. 9.6, Title 1, 2, 3, 4 authorizations. Trustees, is there a motion for the Title 1, 2, 3, and 4 authorization?
All of that has to be read.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Title I authorization item to authorize the superintendent to serve as a representative for the South Carolina Department of Education application for grants to meet the special educational needs of educationally deprived children under Title I of Public Law 103-382. Title II authorization item to authorize the superintendent to serve as a representative for the South Carolina Department of Education application for grants to increase the academic achievement of all students by helping schools and districts improve teacher and principal quality and by ensuring that all teachers are highly qualified through professional development activities. Title III authorization item. To authorize the superintendent to serve as a representative for the South Carolina Department of Education application for grants to provide instructional activities and services to meet the special educational needs of limited English proficient and immigrant students under Title III of Public Law 107-110. Title IV authorization item. To authorize the superintendent to serve as a representative for the South Carolina Department of Education application for grants, which are intended to improve the students' academic achievement by increasing the capacity of states, LEAs, schools, and local communities by 1, providing all students with access to a well-rounded education, 2, improving school conditions for student learning, and 3, improving the use of technology in order to improve the academic achievement and digital literacy of all students.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the Title I authorization item, to authorize the superintendent to serve as the representative for the South Carolina Department of Education application for grants to meet the special needs of educationally deprived children under Title I of Public Law 103-382. Title II authorization item, to authorize the superintendent to serve as representative for the South Carolina Department of Education application for grants to increase the academic achievement of all students by helping schools and districts improve teacher and principal quality, and by ensuring that all teachers are highly qualified through professional development activities. Title III authorization item, to authorize the superintendent to serve as a representative for the South Carolina Department of Education application for grants to provide instructional activities and services to meet the special educational needs of limited English proficient and immigrant students under Title III of Public Law 107-110. Title IV authorization item, to authorize the superintendent to serve as the representative for the South Carolina Department of Education application for grants which are intended to improve the students' academic achievement by increasing the capacity of states, LEAs, schools, and local communities by 1, providing all students with access to a well-rounded education, 2, improving school conditions for student learning, and 3, improving the use of technology in order to improve the academic achievement and digital literacy of all students. Is there any discussion? If not, please cast your vote electronically. The motion passes unanimously. 9.7, FY 2022 proposed budget, second reading / adoption. Trustees, do you have a motion for the second reading / adoption of FY 2022 proposed budget?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the second reading and adoption of the fiscal year 2022 proposed budget.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the second reading and adoption of the FY 2022 proposed budget. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote electronically. The motion passes unanimously. 10 point. We're now down to our consent agenda. Are there any objections to approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. We are now at the closing of this meeting. I I'd like to thank you for your attentiveness to the proceedings